Yeah, welcome back to Zaz Vendetta TV. But yeah, I'm not. You know what? I've sat and I've watched and I've heard and I've read many different comments on this dude Nick Fuentes, and I'm just gonna say this because I don't want nobody to misconstrue what I'm trying to say. At the end of the day, man, I don't care what Nick Fuentes does. Nobody that I know outside of maybe a few idiots that I don't associate with anymore actually listen to Nick Fuentes. Seeing that I'm one of those type of people that don't necessarily can find myself to a certain demographic in a certain circle of people. To say that they're friends or anything of that nature would be far-fetched because I really don't have no friends. I don't really hold anybody that close outside of maybe respecting and and wishing them well, but I don't hold people that close outside of family, so they're not my friends. And more power to them if they choose to follow Nick Fuentes, and that's just what they do. But I know that me personally, I could never be around them just because we have not only conflicting beliefs, but the simple fact I know what he's preaching is bull. He's a grifter, and I'll say that a million times. Now, this is the same with Kirk. Kirk believed in certain things, and there's other things that I think he was just using in order to increase his following. And for people to get on here and be like, he's second to, or he's the modern day Martin Luther King, which is kind of ludicrous and funny at best. And I know most people are saying that just in order to infuriate other people of a certain demographic. Not even that, because there's also people that look exactly like you that are up in arms about that comparison, especially when it's coming from people that are supposedly are staunch Christians. And that's the one thing: Christianity in this country is so far removed from God. And that's not to say everybody, but there's a lot of people that get on here and they spew this nonsense. Like, you think that what I preach is hate, but it's just how should I say? It's for every action is a reaction. So if I get on here and people come at me and spew their racial nonsense, I'm gonna return the favor. I'm not gonna turn cheek, but I'm also not gonna get on here and make the proclamation or to proclaim that every white person is racist towards the black community, because it would be untrue. It's not only untrue, but it would be unfounded. So when I do say what I say, it's not to get at everybody that's white, because I don't believe in classifying anybody as anything. It really comes down to what you do in life, and it doesn't matter what you did in your past, as long as it had nothing to do with children and you're not one of those just piece of crap, beating up old people or something like that, a grapist and stuff like that. Then to me, I think there's rehabilitation in everything. Just not that. And before you get on here and start to be like, oh, well, if you're a religious person, then you pass in judgment. I'm not actually passing judgment on anybody. I just remove myself from certain situations and being in the midst of certain people. It just wouldn't work for me as somebody that just despises those type of people. Now, whatever they did in the past, that's on God to forgive. I'm not one. I know a lot of people like to get on here and talk as if their words are somehow gonna be the catalyst to, when it comes down to forgiving. Like, if their word holds any like real sway towards God or whatever, they assume, they think that they're the ones actually forgiven. No, you're helping him to say what he needs to say and repent from his sins in hopes that God will hear, which he will. And then it comes down to whether God's going to forgive. But this is not the whole thing. The whole reason I started this video is because I wanted to bring that dude Brian Suave to the front of the congregation. See, because dude proclaims to be a staunch Christian, and I can respect that. Like, I can respect somebody that's really in the trenches and stumped down for the religion. I mean, because it's no need to be involved in anything that has to do with religion and be half-assed with it. You need to believe in exactly what you're preaching. And for the most part, I had no issues with this guy. I've heard like talks in the past, but he was pretty much obscured, because the only one that really had a platform that was at that level that people were really paying attention to was this dude Charlie Kirk. And Nick Fuentes was one of those that had got pretty much banned and shunned in all circles, but really started to take off with the whole tiki whatever, and then he started gaining his following. And then now that Charlie Kirk has died, people are a lot more frustrated. There's a lot more angst towards a lot of different races, mostly the black community, which they had nothing to do with it. But people like to throw that blame that way or bring out our statistics, which is funny because, you know, people like to say I'm making it bigger than it is, but it's truth. Like I stated in the last video, we do crimes. You do major crimes, and it's in these lists are compiled by people that are not in our corner and never have been. They're in your corner, but they do point out the truth of what you're capable of and what you have did and the horrendous crimes that you continue to perpetuate. But I digress. Now, Brian Suave, man, I really don't get your talking points. Like I noticed on this one show, you were asked a question on whether blacks would be allowed to join your church, and you said that yes, you know that blacks would be allowed to join your church, but basically due to certain constraints and cultural differences, it wouldn't work out. Like as if being a Christian has to be how should I say, it has to be set to one standard of culture. Like I guess somehow white Christians are a lot better than black Christians. Maybe we worship different. Maybe when you walk in like Baptist churches, there's a lot more energy there. It's not so, bland and talking points don't make you want to go to sleep. It actually wakes you up. That's the only difference I can see with that, because most people that are black and staunch Christians are wholeheartedly and don't waver from it at all. I don't know if you're thinking that somehow the criminals are like a subdivision of that or something. And I don't get it. I don't know why a whole contract would have to be drawn up in order to a membership to a church. Like for one, and this is one of the reasons why I don't even go to church. Like I do my prayers to God by myself. And that's all I really got to do. And people are like, oh, well, if you don't go to church, this and this and that, that's bull. Because if that's the case, then why did Jesus have him torn down? He already knew the church were corrupt, and a lot of you were only in it to get money. Even when they're passing around the little thing, and you were not even supposed to put money in there. That's some of the same practices that was outlawed by certain. Like, do I have to really go into it why that scene is wrong? And a lot of times I put money into the little thing because I know it benefited the church. But then when you start to sit back, you notice it really didn't benefit nobody but the pastors. Maybe the deacons had some hand in it, but for the most part, it's the pastors showing up with brand new Cadillacs. God didn't need you to show up in that. All you need is to show up in a regular car. God didn't have you pull up in a Mercedes Benz, the BMW, and the S Class, and all this other stuff. God didn't need you to get a private jet. God don't need you to wear the most expensive clothes. Like, and you ain't gotta rub shoulders with the most influential people, because at the end of the day, we're supposed to be humble and just spreading his word. And that's the one thing I find contradictive about a lot of the rhetoric that's coming out of these people's mouth. Even the people that get in my comments and go absolutely ape because I say something about their idols. Your idols were racist. They continue to be racist, and the ones that are no longer alive, their group continues to perpetuate racism. The United States is already at a point to where it can go either way. Like I know a lot of people tend to want to equate the behaviors of the past as far as our ancestors and how they accepted certain things but didn't accept certain things. And let me just clarify something for the masses. When I say I'm not like my ancestors, it doesn't mean that I consider them weak. What I mean is I don't turn cheek without hitting you in the same cheek. they stood on business. That's the one thing I could say about my ancestors. They stood on business, because if it wasn't for them, a lot of things, the boycotting, everything, nothing would ever pass. We would still be getting beat on to this day, and in chains to this day, which, prison and all this other stuff, that's still a form of slavery. But we're not going to get into it. We're breaking it down to all, like, the tiniest. We're not going to do that. Basically, dude, you continue to do what you do, we continue to do what we do. But we're not like the ancestors, because they went about it a nice way. We wouldn't. And this is to be brutally honest. I know there's a lot of fools that's looking for that they would embrace a clash between us both, and there's people on this side of the aisle that would love to clash with you too. And this is not like a race thing, but it's just like, I get tired of people talking about what they'll do to us in the whole, like, oh, we'll just run over you. No, you won't. You'll get smacked. There's a reason why physically we have never been equal at all. You have never really been on par with none of us. It goes from boxing to sports to everything. We excel at absolutely everything. And it's not to say that you're not worthy of praise, because there are some people that they have, their feats are great. So, but we pay respect to them. But if you're a racist, we pay you nothing. We don't pay you homage. The only people that pay you homage is the bootlickers. I'm not here to be friends. Let's just say that. Like, I'm good with everybody. A lot of people are like, oh, the mixing of races. I don't see nothing wrong with that. You cannot be blended out. If you're an anomaly, if you're a genetic anomaly and your people didn't really exist until after a certain time, and that we're the first people, so we pretty much gave you life, birthed you. You know what I'm saying? Like, though, I'm not going to get into all the, the whole Homo sapien and Neanderthals. I don't need to get into that. The birthplace of everything was Africa. And no matter how many times they find something somewhere else, they always can place it back to Africa. Okay, these were the descendants of these people. So, and then climate and the changing of this and altering and genetic anomalies. So I don't really trip on that. That's why when black people say, oh yeah, we weaken the race. How? If we're the first, then that means regardless of the fact, you cannot be blended out. You cannot blend us out. Even if you were to cease to exist today, eventually you will pop out again, because it's God's plan. If he never wanted you to exist, you wouldn't exist. No matter what you believe in. You can. It's just the proof has always been in the pudding. But I really understand people's argument. But this whole Brian Suave, like, how is culture have anything to do with the worship of religion? Maybe blacks are a little bit more boastful and a little bit more, animated when they're in church and they're, But that's what it is. It's like there's parts in the Bible you read where it talks about the celebration, and the more people that the God's ear, like, you get it, dude. Like, I'm not gonna get on here and quote the Bible, because it's no need to. Like, if you proclaim to be a staunch Christian, like you say you are, then you should already know. But yeah, I'm not even gonna go on this dude Brian Suave. Like, I wanted to just verbally beat you up this whole thing, but it's no use. It's no use. And all I say is, this is why I don't go to churches. Like, for one, I'm not going to go to a church and separate myself from everybody else because I want an all-black church. I don't mind a church that's integrated. I've been to Catholic churches where the majority of the thing was Hispanic. I've been to churches that were a mixture. I've been to churches where the majority of the people that resided in there were ex-cons. That's why I've been there, because there's a lot of ex-cons that are Christian. They find God and they go a different route with it. Some struggle, but they still cling to the hopes that in the end God will be there to forgive them for everything that they did in the past. That's what a lot of people hold on to. Now, I'll say this because my nose is starting to run. Sorry, but if you really if you really consider yourself a Christian and you go by the preachings of Jesus Christ and his disciples, then going for Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk is wrong, and you know it's wrong. You know it's wrong. You know that they twist. They take the religion, they twist it, and they with skewed ways of thinking. Like they just take it and they turn into something that's unrecognizable. You cannot take for one. You can't take somebody and switch everything about them in order to justify you acting a certain way. You can't be like, oh well, Jesus was white. I'm not even saying, I don't care what race he is. If you consider the Messiah, he's the Messiah, and if you don't, then you don't. Everybody has their choice of believing what they want, but you can't take him and turn him a certain nationality or race in order to justify your mistreatment of other people. It doesn't line up with somebody that's following the teachings of Jesus. Because if you really listen to it, look at Paul. Look at us outright slaying Christians, like just destroying them left and right. But he was forgiven. He became Christian himself. Constantine, same thing, pagan. Eventually found the word of Christ and eventually changed. And it's been a slew of people adopting the teachings of Christ and really wholeheartedly embracing it, and they change. But the problem with America is you don't want to change. A lot of you are stuck wanting to believe a certain way because you feel like it gives you power. You're twisting something that wasn't made to be twisted. It's made to give hope to everybody. But Brian Suave, I'm gonna just call it how I see it. You're trash. You're trash. And anybody that believes that churches should be segregated is trash. I mean, it's cool, have people around you but that's not God's, that wasn't God's message. That wasn't Jesus' message for separation. You can't call yourself a Christian and you're pushing separation. There's no, oh, well, this just for the time being. No, it's to push through everything. That's the reason why people remain here. They try to push through everything. So that's all I'm gonna say on that, man. I know I really wanted to get on that dude, but you know what? I could get on here and I could be disrespectful. It's all outdoors, but it's really not gonna change anything. You guys will still have the same beliefs you have. You will still see me as somebody that doesn't know what he's talking about, because I'm not catering or adhering to certain talking points. I speak my mind, and that's what it is. You see Zod Vendetta podcast. Even though I'm not in a podcast setting, I'm still stating what I need to say. It's truth. I'm not sugarcoating nothing. I'm not trying to be your friend. I'm stating it how I think it. It's my opinion. This is my channel. It's my opinion. It ain't to, you know what I mean? I'm not here to make you see my point. All I can do is hope that you take something away from it. But I mean, we all command who we command, and not making you listen. But sometimes there's something that might resonate with somebody. There's little bits and pieces that people might get. Man, that's just how it is. Same way with the Bible. There's certain parts of the Bible people get, and some they're clueless to it. Some people don't believe Job should have suffered the way he suffered, but that was God's plan, and Job succeeded. And though he lost his family, he gained another one. And he could have dwelt on it. He could have cursed God. He could have did nothing. But he held solid, and he's rewarded. And a lot of you are missing the message. You don't hold solid, you ain't gonna be rewarded. You're gonna be just like a lot of us that may have, on the outside looking in, starving. But I'm constantly trying to make my way back into the inside. But it's yet to be determined. With that being said, I'm your boy Zod. This is Zod Vendetta TV, and I don't cut no corners, and I say what I want because it's my channel within reason. And I'm out.